Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sahana Bhavatu. So may we all be protected. So may we be protected from, right, these unknown factors in your life, right? We all need protection. So we're asking the Lord for protection. And then we're asking, may we be nourished. So may we be nourished by the right strength, by the right energy, by the right attention, by the right focus, by the right interest, by the right patience. We need to be nourished by all of these qualities because it's not easy to have this knowledge, right, transform us unless we have the right nourishment in our life. May we be nourished by the right relationships, by the right people in our life, by the right environment, by the right neighbors, by the right friends. Everyone can nourish us well, and it can contribute to our well-being. And then when we're nourished, then when we're in the class, may we both make the effort to strive to have some learning take place. In other words, we want to maximize our time here. So we intentionally tell ourselves, for example, that while I'm here, let me, be switched on. Let me find nuances of what's being said. Let me find ways to bring this in, help me to remove whatever blockages there are that may be preventing me from receiving this input and making it personal for myself. So we are asking that this knowledge, that we put the best effort forward so that it has the most impact for us. And Tejasvinavadhitamastu, it means that, so everyone, right, has different opinions. Everyone's got different ideas, different visions, different, you vote for a different kind of candidate. You have a different kind of a person in your life, and you have different opinions. So what we're saying is that when we are together, whoever it is, not just with teacher and student, but with your loved ones, your close ones, then rather than finding reasons to disagree, find those avenues that I can agree upon. And then I start my conversation through that. Otherwise, it's very hard to connect if both are starting from a disagreement mode. So this means when a teacher or a student says something that we may not quite agree with, then we can still agree and find those things that we do agree upon. So this is how we sustain a connection. And Ma Vidvishavahai is that, right, may we not quarrel, so may we not argue as a result of when you bring all of these teachings into your life, will we not find ways for disagreement? So this is the initial prayer. So saying that, let's continue from last week. So we have finished verse 25, and verse 25 was a significant verse, which was describing the nature of you. And in Vedanta, we have to understand Vedanta is a means of knowledge. A means of knowledge is a method by which you come to understand something. So simple, take mathematics. Mathematics, if I just tell you 2 times 2 equals 4, and I say, oh, you say, oh, it's great. But then you say this to a child and they will memorize it. But does that mean they've understood it? No, right? So you have to explain why is 2 times 3 6, why is 9 times 9 81, why is, right, whatever. So you have to explain, so they have to understand it and integrate it so that they can arrive to the same answer. So in that same way, Vedanta is a methodology by which we provide you, for example, last week, Satya Mithya. We provide you a certain teaching where you recognize that wherever there is Mithya, that's where Satyam is. Now, if I say that, you can relatively understand what I mean by that. So that understanding, which we provided last week, that's a pramana. So a pramana is to be, what does this pramana say? Well, it says that, right, you are, what does we say? It's achintya, you are unthinkable, your nature is not something that you can think it. So if you, for example, ask, suppose, a liberated person, so what's it like to be enlightened? Can you hear the question? What's it like to know the truth? What's it like to know the reality? So what is the other person supposed to say now? Oh, it's, I feel light. I feel like I'm floating on the clouds. I feel so cheerful. I am so just kind of happy. I'm not disturbed by things. These are all qualities of the mind. Yeah, I can see Lorena speaking. So this means there's nothing that someone can describe to you because the question itself is erroneous. So if I say, what's it like to have moksha? You're putting the person on the spot. You're expecting them to reply erroneously. So the other person has to reply and say, there's no answer to that because awareness, the final reality, you, is not something that can be thought of, something that can be explained, something that can be described, something that can be sort of written a poem about. They're all lovely indicators, but they're not the actual thing. Rather, awareness is in whose presence this question took place and this answer is now taking place. There's an awareness in whom that question is taking place, and there's an awareness in whom this, liberated person, whoever they are, is also answering, and there's knowledge of that question, there's knowledge of that, right, of that statement. So in that sense, it is unthinkable. It's not an object, it's not a description, it's not an idea. And this is very important because no matter how many times one explains it, it's mostly going to be the same question. What's it like to know the self, right? What's it like to know Brahman? So look at this. The mind is almost like just not willing to hear what I just said. So I'm going to say it again. If this question ever comes, then just pause, please, and say, stop. The question itself is erroneous. And as long as the question is erroneous, I will never, ever get a satisfactory answer. So this means the person must listen to their question and just recognize the silliness of the question itself. So this means it is not an object of a coming and going. So now the awareness is not there. Now I'm going to describe it to you. And now look at this. Now you ask me, tell me the final reality. Now I'm going to bring the final reality and I'm now describing it to you, right? And now you ask me, oh yeah, how's your day today? Now I have to put the final reality away and I have to describe the final reality to you. So this is in reference to objects, but it's not, you cannot do that in reference to awareness because awareness is always there, shining, illumining your experience, illumining your doubts, illumining your, your aspirations, your thoughts about this, your confusions, your revelations, your insights, right? It's just there all the time, never not available to you. It's always present as just a simple revealer of experience. And we said it is avikara. It doesn't undergo change. The revealer doesn't undergo change, but the states of mind undergo change. So in that sense, you can say, my mind is, expanding, but not my awareness is expanding. And avyakta, it means unmanifest. That means it's not any one object, which is exactly what I just said now. It's not one object to be described. It's not an object to be described tomorrow. It is right here, right now, as awareness of this experience.
What are they called? Koans, in Buddhist meditation.
Koans, yeah, koans.
Things that are illogical for your mind, or more for the intellect, because your intellect is logical. And so you introduce something like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And it's like, your intellect then comes to a stop. And I wonder how that, I don't know, that makes sense to work to that, because you can't describe it. And we don't have any kind of a sense other than what they call intuition.
Sure.
To understand Brahman or awareness, to understand the idea of something that doesn't have, space and time.
Sure. And so the koan is a good example. However, it's not necessarily a pramana. It's not meant to show you. It's just meant to stop the mind that keeps on turning everything to a thought. Compare this moment to itself, not to some other moment in the future or the past. I want you to compare this moment to itself right now. Can you find a difference? Right? See, the moment your mind goes in the future or the past, no, I mean, compare it to this moment. Or there was another one, someone said this earlier to me, and I couldn't answer it. So let's see how well. It's very early on. Let's see how well you're able to answer this, Cohen. It says that it escaped my mind now, but I'll probably remember it. So it went something like, "What is?" I forgot, but doesn't matter. I'll bring it. I'll bring it in the future. I'll surprise you with it, and then we'll see how well you can ascertain it. I remembered it now. So I forgot it. Okay, Pankaj.
Morning. My question is moksha and reality a mirage we all are running after, and there is nothing to achieve at the end of it?
According to the Vedas, there are 4 goals, and there is actually only one goal, not 4 goals. There's only one. The 3 are subservient to the one. So any kind of pursuit for wealth or security or pleasures or ethics or being a good person and doing what needs to be done, they're all just to help you to mature, to have a more loving personality, to have deeper thinking, to have a purer mind, to be able to look at things from different standpoints, to extract the essence of what's being said, to relate to what we're saying, to connect to the teaching. So all of these things are important, and they're subservient to moksha. So everything thus is for the sake of moksha. So yes, that is the final goal. And sometimes the question is, then what, right? Then what do I do now? Well, first of all, again, the question is incorrect, because what do I? You have to again question the word I. So, right, awareness is always there, even before the knowledge took place. In other words, the body, right, who you never were in the first place, the person who you never were in the first place, continues to do exactly the same thing. See, the only difference between knowledge, that means moksha, and ignorance is that in ignorance, when a person says, I am doing, the entirety of that word I is based in this body and this mind and these thoughts. After moksha, and after these notions are cleared up, it's a growing clarity until then. But when the knowledge takes place at instant, then there is an I, but the definition of the word I is entirely different. And whoever's teaching right now, whoever's listening right now, that's not I, right? That's just an instrument that's meant to do things the way that they're trained, based on their knowledge, based on their experiences. And therefore the clarity of the word I ensues, it takes place. So that's moksha. Yeah. So, and like anything, it's not a mystical thing, because if you want to understand physics or any subject at all, what do you need? You need time, you need a pramana, means of knowledge, you need patience, right? And it's not a romantic process, no matter what we learn. It's not just Vedanta. Vedanta is nothing special, actually. The only special actually thing about Vedanta is that it's not the reality that you're trying to know, understand, is already known to you. That's why we say it's already aparoksha jnanam. So, for example, if I describe to you a durian, you've never eaten a durian before. Suppose you've never seen it before. And it stinks, right? And it's very sharp. It's a good thing to kill someone with because of the spikes. And I can describe it to you. And now you kind of heard about it, right? What a durian is. Now but it's still paroksha jnanam. It's still indirect knowledge. Now, when I give you a durian, right, and you actually bite into it and you smell it, right, then you have aparoksha jnanam. So you have direct experience, that direct knowledge of it. Now, when it comes to Atma, can you say that that is indirect? Can you say that Atma is, before shaking head, just listen. Atma, your reality, can you say that your reality is ever indirect? That it's indirect knowledge? Because let's go back to the durian. That means, right, I've heard about it, but I've not tasted it. That means I still don't have it right now. That's indirect knowledge. So this means I don't have it right now. So if I ask the same question in reference to awareness, is awareness something that you don't have right now? What do you think, Pankaj?
I think we still have indirect knowledge of awareness or Atma.
Okay. Okay. So it's interesting you say that, because if it was indirect knowledge, then right, then the question would be, how are you, aware of this conversation right now? Right? You're aware of this conversation.
Yeah, I am aware,
Yes.
but I still do not know exactly what it is.
So good. So this means that even though you're aware of this conversation, that means it's already direct. So self, Atma, is always aparoksha jnanam. The only problem is I've mixed it up with the body-mind complex. I've mixed it up with the subject, the person, the three bodies. I've just mixed it up. So the whole pramana in Vedanta is just getting very clear what is I and what is the witness, the subject, right? The knower. So this is all the jiva. When I say the witness, the experiencer, the sakshi, the knower, the pramata, these are all Sanskrit words. They just refer to your ahamkara, your I sense, right? But we said last week clearly that even if whether you talk about the world, right, the earth, the objects, the world, the cosmos, space and time, or whether you, which is what we call an object. So I'm looking at this now. And who's looking at this now? Well, here, the subject. We call it the experiencing witness, the knower, the pramata, the I sense, right? So the I sense is looking at this. But look at this. Both of them are just 5 elements. Okay, they're all both made of 5 elements. And we said last week that if you, through the analysis, you perform the inquiry, everything about this, you can't find the final building block of, for example, the world, right? It's reducible, reducible, atoms, particles, and it goes into eventually concepts. And same thing, anything about sense of I, right? This person right now that's listening, well, this person is like a knower right now. I am knowing about this conversation. I'm experiencing this conversation. But then this person will also be doing, right? They will be doing something. Maybe I'll be cutting the grass after this session ends, right? So this means this person will be a doer. So the doer changes into a knower, the knower changes into a doer, and the subject then goes through these 3 states. And in one of those states, the sleeper, where's the doer or the knower? It's gone. So everything about this side is also not only changing, it is an object, it is also reducible into smaller forms. So in that sense, it is 5 elements and ultimately reduces into concepts. And concepts, and how do you know it reduces into concepts? Well, just take your mind right now, which is made of the 5 elements. Your thoughts right now that you're thinking and going, this is a classroom. This is a classroom. That's just a thought made of 5 elements. Okay. And those 5 elements, their being rests in concepts. There, for example, you have a concept right now, right? A concept of maybe a red house. Imagine a red house. Okay. A red house. Now this concept goes. See, it goes. Now I say to you, blue elephant. Blue elephant. Okay, gone. So red house concept, blue elephant concept, but there's one presence that remains. That's awareness, ordinary awareness. We don't have to kind of glorify it, ordinary, everyday, common awareness that you cannot negate. Look at this. I said red elephant, negated. Blue, no, I said blue elephant, right? And I said red house, negated. But try to negate your awareness right now. Please do that. So we negated concepts. We have successfully negated concepts. Please negate your awareness right now. Please don't be aware in this moment. Please stop being aware. Are you ever going to succeed at that? Look at this. I can totally forget my name. I can forget concepts, my life. I can forget my life. But can you forget your existence? Will you ever say, oh, I think I forgot that I exist. Oh, can you please remind me that I exist? Please remind me. Oh, Andre, you exist. Oh, thank you very much. You don't need to be reminded that you exist. but you need to be reminded of everything else, like the koan that I forgot. Ah, I've got it now. If you don't tell me, I will hit you. If you tell me, I will hit you harder. Okay, so it goes like this. So here's the koan. Who are you? If you tell me, I will hit you. If you don't tell me, I will hit you harder. Who are you? Think about this. Someone said this to me. Now, what's the first question you got to ask? Who are you? I will hit you. If you don't tell me, I will hit you harder. Who are you?
Why do you want to hit me?
Yeah, what did I do, right? Oh, boom. You just answered, so that's a hit. Anything else?
Is it the awareness that you're about to get hit?
Yeah, good one, good one. So yeah, okay, try. Okay, please. What are you gonna hit? My body, right? That's not me. You're gonna hit my awareness. Sorry, you're gonna miss. So this means Bobby has got it. Yeah, so like this, and it's meant to make you think. So like this, I even forgot the koan, right? But I cannot forget that I am. No one can forget that I am. Pankaj cannot forget that I am. No, don't even philosophize what this I am. Just I am. Simple. I am. So this I am that you can't ever forget. You don't need to be reminded. That is what Atman refers to. That is what the final reality refers to. That which you can't forget. That which nobody needs to remind you. But everything else, I need to be reminded. What I'm going to do tomorrow, what I will do next week, right? Sometimes even basic ideas would just go blank totally.
I'm 100% clear on the concept of this awareness never leaves us at any way or any moment, even if I'm in the deep sleep or dreamer or awaker. But the question is, if I'm not paying attention to myself, let's say if I'm lost in the content of experiences, like I'm thinking or I'm seeing or I'm watching a movie, so my attention is totally dragged outside or maybe inside in my thoughts, then at that point awareness is still there on the background, but my attention is not into being aware. Is that right? Is that attention and awareness is a coexisting, or attention is required to access the awareness?
Okay, thank you for asking this. This is a subtle question. Generally, the word attention will refer to the mind. Okay, so I need to now put attention specifically, right? See faces on your face. So this is how all mind experiences, processes. Now, even when one's lost in thoughts, right, and they kind of question later on, just the fact that you're questioning, right, or asking about that process where I was gone in that moment, I was so lost in thought, right? I was no longer conscious of my awareness. But look at this, just the fact to be mentioning that implies that you were there in that experience, that your awareness, not your, but awareness was there. Otherwise, you wouldn't mention it. So, but yes, in the moment of being lost in that moment, right, unless the mind's very sharp, then it seems as if, right, I am totally gone. Like there's no more me, the awareful one. But is that really true? The awareful one is gone?
No.
If you analyze your experience, no way. You can't say it's gone or it's gone, because if it was gone, then you would not ever mention that experience to me, because there was no one there. But there was something there, which was awareness. In the presence of awareness, there was the experience taking place. So that's why I said last week, a thought doesn't displace you. Right?
Yeah.
Wherever there's a thought, that's exactly where Satyam is. That's where Mithya is, that's exactly where Satyam is. So wherever there's a thought, that's exactly where the awareness, the content of that thought is. And what's the content of every thought? Even to say awareness to me right now, what's the content of that thought? It's going to be,
Awareness.
it's going to be awareness, right? So even
Yeah.
if you speak about awareness, the content of that thought of the speak is going to be a conscious being is always going to be there.
So it means attention is the element of the faculty of a mind, which means only because of mind there is attention, not because we are conscious. That's why attention is there. So attention, we borrow the attention from the faculty of the mind to know the consciousness, or the consciousness is the primary element to know that there is an attention. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. So it's very simple. So attention is a faculty of the mind, no
Yeah.
different than emotion or memory. It's just another faculty to exclude everything else and only put make the mind kind of vision onto one single thing. So that's all product of the mind. You don't need, right? Awareness is always going to be there, illumining the mind that's going to be very attentive to one thing, and the mind is going to sort of drift away onto other things. So in the presence of this one light that's always there, revealing the states of mind, the sharp state of mind, the blunt state of mind, in the presence of that awareness, all of these states of mind, including sharpness and attention, it's all going to get revealed, right? Like the light in the room, it's going to just whatever you have in the room. You can have an argument in the room, you can have a beautiful conversation in the room, right? And you switch off the light. Suppose we're all dancing in the room and we're all talking about each other's dance styles. Okay. But then you switch off someone switches off the lights. Then all of our conversation, you can't say anything, right? All your attention is gone onto other people. Your inspiration and your laughter is all gone in one moment because there's nothing to see. There's nothing to know. It's all gone. There's no revealer anymore. So like this, the awareness is the revealer of your mind that's always dancing in its own way.
I have a curiosity along similar lines. In this context, I believe it's fair to say that you can't be aware of being awareness without having a mind. Is that correct? No, you can't be aware of awareness. I mean,
no, because that implies that awareness is requiring the mind. It's
correct. So just saying, so we're on the same level there. So the thing that I often come to in this is why the deliberation. We already are awareness. There's never ever a way out or not in that. We talk a lot about, I'll speak for myself. I've investigated, I've sought, I've seeked, it's been this, it looked like that, all these things we talk about. But there isn't ever the opportunity or possibility of there being anything other. So no matter what knowledge I gain or what experience I have or anything whatsoever, nothing actually changes. And yet there might be this sense of desiring fulfillment, for example, or desiring moksha, the one goal, as you put it. Even that itself is a desire which is of the mind, correct? I get a little, when it comes to that, it's like, how do you delineate?
You can easily go off track because of this amount of objects that are fancy, that are interesting, and thereby, even though everything's one, right, your focus is on forms, and so our forms are become the main focus of our life. And every form brings you an experience, and then you talk about it, you're going to share experiences. So this is all part of living, and it's totally fine. All Veda says is live your life to the fullest, but don't forget why you really came here for. And that's the biggest purpose. So it's not like now, this is supposed to negate reality and supposed to live a secluded life and in a forest. If you want to do that, this is fine. But the person doesn't need to do that because there's only one Ishvara, one intelligence. Where am I going to go away from? What am I going away from? So this intelligence is to be known, and the truth of this intelligence and me are one. So this is to be known, and thereby, until the person's ready, then they're not going to be interested in this. So it's a journey that takes time to evolve, and you can't convince the person until they're ready.
And once that's known, Andre, nothing actually changes, correct?
Nothing changes. This example, I mean, this is a little bit, talk about this later, is because, see, for example, suppose I have a perception about someone and it's a rumor, right? Now, this rumor, right, someone tells me the right kind of information about this person. Now, what's going to happen the moment I get the right information about this person? My experience is going to change totally. So before I was perceiving them as this, you know, this person that's unwise, they're rude and they're evil and they're so on. And then I get the right information about them, and instantly my own subjectivity changes. It's aligned now with knowledge. So now, as long as it's a pratibhasika, this is a subjective idea, as long as it's a subjective idea, then when that subjective idea gets corrected, then the experience entirely changes. You can agree with this? You can relate to this? Now, what about the world? Is the world my imagination like this, like it is my imagination of the person? Because of the person, it's my own idea. It's all my own imagination. It's not somebody else's. But what about the world that we live in? Is that a private imagination?
Is it not?
No, because if you die, if your mind dies, the world for us continues. So that means, see, as long as it's a private idea, that means my own mind is there, but it's not somebody else's. So we can have, right? You can, 5 people are going to have different opinions about me. So your opinion is going to be different from Sanjeev's opinion. Sanjeev's opinion is going to be different from Bao's opinion. 5 different opinions. So this means now when Andre presents himself, right, in the true light, then you go, oh, we all had a wrong idea. He was like this, he was like this, you know, he lived there, and so this is how his idea, life, it's all gone. So this means you have 5 different notions that are not keeping with reality. When the right information gets presented, they all align to how, right, more objective, more empirical, more how the person actually is. Now, when it comes to the world, are you imagining the tree? I mean, the world is just there. The world, you came, you know, the world was there. You were born into the world. So there's no question of imagining the world. You die, the world still continues. So now when I discover that the truth of the world is intelligence, does that change the world? Why? Because it was intelligence all along.
Yep.
Owing to my
That's
ignorance, owing to my ignorance, I was looking at the world as a form, looking at the world as a tree, as, you know, air, as a building, as a person, as a nose. That was my own ignorance. Since how long? Beginningless time. When the pramana comes in, it says, wait, just analyze. What are you looking at? Says a scientist, a common scientist. You don't even need Vedanta at this point. And they arrive to atoms. Now, when the scientist comes out of the class, and now they know that all that is here are atoms, are they actually seeing atoms? But they understand cognitively that all that is here are atoms. He deals with the same things in the same way, just cognitively understands there's more than meets the eye. Now, when Vedanta comes in, it says, wait, that's not all. You've got a little bit more there. You got concepts and you got awareness. Now, let us tell you about that. So now when I further investigate and I see that the atoms cannot just randomly put together, you have to have an intelligence by which these atoms are being put together. And by the way, the atoms themselves are not different from intelligence, because I can't find an atom. It's just, right, you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you go into the most fuzzy, what, between waves and particles, they say it's fuzzy. There's no more kind of, it's almost the same. So at the concrete level, yeah, a lot of differences. But the smaller you go, what happens? The more same it becomes. At the level of the world, my God, so much color, so much beauty, rainbow, everything. But I look at every of those different objects. I look down, 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 and now at the level of the atom, they are exactly the same. They all have a proton, they all have a neutron, they all have a nucleus. They all have a quark. Vedanta says it doesn't stop there, because you don't just have a bunch of atoms. putting themselves together to create a seed. You don't have just a seed growing into an intelligent tree. You got to have intelligence for the tree, because the tree is connected to the sun. The tree knows how to use the process of photosynthesis to get the energy from the sun and convert it into energy for itself. So this means whatever designed the tree, that intelligence also has to be knowledgeable of the sun, also has to be knowledgeable of the plants and the animals that will live and use that tree for its own livelihood, and also has to know about the digestive tract on how to digest those fruits of that tree. It has to know about how to excrete those fruits once it's been eaten. And it has to know also how to recycle the water, because the animals need to drink, need to survive. So what happens? You have water, evaporates, condenses, falls back into the ocean. Clear water, no more salty. And that water finds itself all the way back into the oceans, 3,000 miles. Somehow finds its way back home. And we put ourselves in the suburb, any suburb. And I say, go and find the other end of the suburb without GPS. And we can't do it. And yet something as insentient as water that's fallen down a mountain finds its way back somehow all the way back to the ocean. Where's the question of inertness here? Where's the question of just randomness here? It's the whole thing is just manifestation of intelligence, appearing as atoms, as all these other things. So like this, I don't stop at atoms. The Vedantin continues all the way back into cognitively understanding its intelligence, which is why we say all that is here is Ishvara. And the final equation, you say, the truth of Ishvara and me, which is just one of the manifestation of Ishvara, is this ordinary I amness that's known to everyone, that you cannot negate, that you cannot reduce to something smaller, that you cannot forget, that you don't need to be reminded. So this is what's called the pramana, the Vedanta pramana. And all of this, you need the mind. And that mind which you need to figure this out is also concepts. And the truth of those concepts is awareness.
So there isn't any difference to my apparent individual awareness or perception or opinions to that of a tree, other than all those steps that you've just mentioned. And hence, I don't actually have a decision to make per se. The only thing that could say that would be the identification with an individual me around something.
Yeah, these are all just mind attributes. And
so Ishvara's doing everything. If there's a doer, words are tricky, but there isn't an individual me in charge of doing anything, deciding anything, including that of moksha.
I will put a slight adjustment there. Ishvara is not doing anything. Ishvara is just intelligence, which is constantly manifesting itself to accommodate the causes and effects that are happening. So according to the person's free will, they make this intelligence shape and mold itself to bring you something new in life. So intelligence always remains intelligence. It never loses its status of intelligence. This is why technically we call it parinami upadana karanam. It is a material cause, but it doesn't lose its status as knowledge and power. It always is knowledge and power all throughout. Now, all of the world that's happening at the level of form, it's constantly being, rearrangement of this knowledge and power, constant rearrangement. So knowledge and power always remains knowledge and power, but there is one more aspect that can contribute to the things that are happening, and that is your own free will and the interaction of forms between two forms. And these are called laws and orders. For example, if I drop this, it's always going to go down. Now, Ishvara didn't really do this. But in the presence of Ishvara's laws, which is called gravity, this is the effect. This is how it is. This is the Ishvara's setup.
Yeah, I get it. Ishvara is not a person per se.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
For the want of language. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ishvara is specifically Sarvajna, Sarvashakti, all knowledge, all power. In the presence of all knowledge and all power, things, laws, and orders are set up to work and do their thing. And this knowledge and power makes things what they are, makes your heart what it is, makes your brain what it is, makes air what it is, makes two objects bouncing and repelling each other what it is, makes magnetism what it is, makes the sun what it is.
So this intelligence allows within its own intelligence the opportunity to control itself so that you know that you're it.
It's so, I mean, it's in the presence of it, there are laws and orders which facilitate the interactions between forms. And these laws and orders are called sanatana. They're eternal. They will never end. Mm-hmm. So this is what you're observing now, this world, this is Ishvara's setup.
Yeah.
This is how it's always been. It will never be any different. Whether this world or another world, this is how it is. So this is the creative power of Ishvara. It's amazing. And we're living it now. We're one of these manifestations.
So there's nothing wrong.
Exactly. So in other words, the whole journey is just to release this idea that I have to fix things, right? I mean, you're just one little speck in a, eternal time. And I want, the world was totally fine without me. And then I got born and suddenly I want to fix this world. So now the ego takes a hit and goes, nobody needs you. How dare you say this? I'm important. Nobody needs you and I. The world will go on perfectly just fine, like it's been going on for eons backwards and with eons forwards. So in that sense, all I need to do is just my little part here that I'm given, my little strength, my little, whatever your strengths are, this much I can give. This is all that Krishna says is my duty in this world.
Even that, sorry to take up so much time, but even that ego isn't wrong. It might just be the thing that tips me over, for example, or that allows the next tree to grow, or whatever.
Because ego is a function like memory, but it only becomes wrong, it only becomes loaded when you start to turn things into a superiority or an inferiority complex. I know, Lorena. Okay, so in other words, right, I'm born as this person and I say, oh, but I'm not good enough. I don't have enough students. I want more. So now all this ego starts to add stories on top of its empirical reality. The empirical reality is I'm a human being. I live in Australia. You live wherever you live. You are a man, you're a female. But then the ego starts to add, here's what that means. It means this, it means that. So now I'm loaded with 5 more stories to deal with. So now I have to get rid of all of these stories because there's no way I'm going to even hold this vision as long as I'm holding 5 stories about me. I'm holding stories. Because remember, wherever there's ego, that's exactly where consciousness is. Now, if ego is carrying 5 imaginative stories, then those 5 stories are superimposed over awareness. And that awareness I'm trying to know, which is not good enough, which can't, is unlovable, is not worthy, it will never make it, will never attain moksha. Look at all these stories. And where are these stories? In the mind. And I have to get rid of these stories slowly by we will discuss how, right? There's a methodology to it. Living the right values, finding time to forgive, to look at things differently, to reframe your stories little by little.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, Lorena.
I just wanted to say one example of limited knowledge and how that free will can alter an outcome.
Yes, please.
Of cause and effect. I poisoned the tree, the only good tree in my garden. I poisoned it unknowingly.
Oh.
So I had stumps around the edge of my house, which I poisoned.
Okay.
And I had no awareness or no knowledge that the mycelium that's under the ground, the network under the ground, exchanges nutrients to other plants in the garden. And those roots that were still left from the stump exchanged nutrients to the one tree that I wanted to keep, which is further away. Wow. And I was very I just didn't know why it died suddenly, this beautiful tree. And then I realized through, investigation that killing this, like trying to kill off the stumps around closer to my house is what fed the nutrients to that tree and killed it. So it's just an example of that ignorance, and you can, and your free will can alter the outcome of things unknowingly through that limited intelligence.
Yes. Now, your papam is not as big as if you did it deliberately, but it is some papam there. But it's a very good example how we don't intentionally, see, most of us we don't lie. It's very, I was listening to a program, we think that people are liars. Actually, the natural predisposition of many is that we are honest. This is so people generally want to be honest. This is why it says statistically, whether you're a CIA, FBI, in a police force, a judge, 54% of the time, we can't tell if someone is lying. We're terrible at telling who's a liar. You don't know. In other words, limited knowledge. Now, right, suppose I say, tell me the truth, and you tell me a lie, and then I just sort of, okay, fine, you can go. You can go tonight and go to your friend's house, right? And you go somewhere else. I don't know. So this means I need to be forgiving. This is why forgiveness is important, because people don't know. Very few are intentionally evil, intentionally making, deliberate damage. It's just the pressure, inner pain that's pushing to cause this injury. And so in that sense, I have to understand whose real fault is it? Is it the arm's fault that took the gun? Is it the finger that pulled the trigger? Is it which brain cell's fault is it for committing a crime? Is it brain cell number 1, brain cell number 2? Or is the real fault beginningless ignorance? Beginningless ignorance, which denies me from knowing and having access to the right values, to the right education, to the right truth, to the right teachings, to the right culture. So through this, I can drop this need to constantly judge and say, oh, my fault. Oh, no. Like Lorena just pointed out, she didn't know. Can she blame herself? Not really, because she innocently didn't know. So number one, we started to drop these ideas that I am a failure, I will never get this, oh no, I'm feeling guilty for my past mistakes. And number two, in reference to others, I can also relinquish them from holding these judgments because they also don't know. It doesn't now mean that just let the world do whatever it is. If you can't do something, that's fine. But in most cases, what good does it do for any of us to hold grudges to something that you can't really have any change towards? It only affects us. It only affects you, your own state of mind. So the person has to come and say, hey, do I really want to keep thinking like this? Because this thinking is not making a life pleasant at all. What level of control do I have? And where is my lack of control? If I do have some control, let me affect those variables. Those other variables that I don't have control, I'm not even going to get concerned about because someone else will take care of that. So this is how we participate in the world without getting entangled in our participation, by recognizing where is my locus of control and where is my locus of absence of control.
Do we all basically have the same awareness? So everyone in this room, it's the same awareness, which is unchanging. Our thoughts, feelings, all that changes, but the awareness behind us all, who we actually are, it's the same and it never changes.
Yeah, so we can do an experiment right now. Instead of just saying, yes, it's the same, I can say, hey, Bobby, define your awareness for me, right? And then whatever, right? You say, oh, my awareness, Andre, is female. I've got a female awareness, right? And then I say, oh, my awareness is male awareness. But that's only, what if I sort of take, my face away and I have a, transplant or something, put a face. So in other words, our adjectives are only regarding the form. They're regarding the, the mind, like smart awareness, very sharp awareness, or enlightened awareness, or ignorant awareness. All of these adjectives, they're always in reference to states of minds, never to awareness. Because look at this, here's the logic. If my awareness was ignorant, then could ignorant awareness ever recognize something that is knowledge? Could ever recognize knowledge? If awareness was ignorance, that means it could never come to a point and recognize that 2 times 2 equals 4, because 2 times 2 equals 4, that's a fact, that's knowledge. If your awareness was ignorant, then it would forever be ignorant. It would always, you will be ignorant of everything. You could never go, today I just had a breakthrough. Today I just discovered, that, the sun is, that moon is so, 300,000 kilometers or so from the earth. So awareness is always attributeless. It's attributeless for you. It is attributeless for me. Because the only way you can say that your awareness is different from mine is to give it an attribute. And the moment you give it an attribute, I will instantly object and say, and to what of these 3 bodies does that attribute belong to? And you always say, well, it belongs to my mind. And tomorrow, when you're feeling great, that attribute is probably not going to be there anymore. You won the lottery, for example, right? And you go, oh, my awareness now is so happy. I've got happy awareness. Yesterday it was sad awareness. So now all of these, they're just states of mind.
Question around Satyam. So Satyam and Satya, as we call it in real life. So quote Mahatma Gandhi, Satyam eva jayate, truth always wins or prevails. We teach our kids like not to lie, don't be dishonest, do not deceive, just be a good person. So can we say like the truth and siding with the truth and always by being with the truth is how that is like connected with the ultimate reality, which we call as Satyam itself. You know what I mean? At practical level.
Yeah.
By following those values, good values, being a good person, always telling the truth, are we heading in that direction, we can say? Or I know there's nowhere to go, it's all here.
Sure.
But just like at practical level, how do we differentiate? Like, or all this is mithya as well, like,
Sure.
raising kids and family and telling them to be a good person. Is that also part of mithya itself? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so in chapter 13, verse 8, we've got the word arjavam. Arjavam, for example, is straightforwardness. In English, it just means you follow up. You're someone that I can rely upon you. You're an integrated person. You're integrous. You have integrity. Now, suppose I say to you, I am going to call you, and I don't call you. Okay. Not only will you be disappointed, but what am I going to think about myself now? I'm not, a very good friend to you. I'm not reliable. Obviously I'm not a leader, because leaders don't do this. They follow with their words. So now it becomes my problem. Now, as long as I'm bearing these problems, these narratives, they're going to make it very unpleasant in here, in the mind. Now, an unpleasant mind is not going to think about this. It's not going to be able to hold this, because it's going to default back to, yeah, but I'm not good enough. If I can't even tell my friend and hold my word, then what to say about holding the truth in my head? So this means as long as the person is misaligned in themselves, and they're carrying all of these stories that I'm not a good person and I can't follow through, this is going to always interfere with the knowledge. It's going to sound great for sure, but is it going to stay? Most likely not. Met so many from Osho, from Osho times, who they're all exactly the same story. I'm not going to say what they say, but the general basis of it is that there was no pramana, there was no means of knowledge. It was all just kind of awareness thing and all of this usual stuff you hear, but still, they haven't come to the truth. They're still discovering who they are. They still want to know who they are. Nothing has really changed. And it's amazing, and not much progress has taken place at all, because the values were not there. There was no real strict process of here's the values, here's how to live right, honest. No, it was just a free show. Go and do whatever you want. Be free. So what is free? Atma is free. And then what do? We superimpose Atma's freedom onto the body-mind. So now we try to make the body-mind. Go and have as much sex as you want, because you are free, which is the body. Go and be immortal. Try to be immortal. Try to gain limitless skills. What's limitless? Atma is limitless. But now I superimpose that limitlessness onto the mind, and I try to make myself as a mind limitless. I try to learn, know Sanskrit, know this language, know that language, know everything, know every single term, be a scholar, know this, know everything. What am I doing? Superimposing Atma onto the mind. Why am I doing that? Because I'm still carrying these stories, stories after stories after stories that are so stuck in the mind. Yeah, but I'm just working on myself. Working on myself. What else are you doing? Just working on myself. Look at this. Me, 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 me. For once, we have to say, if I'm glad the chapter is coming, is going to say, I have to also contribute. Because if you are one of the manifestations of Ishvara, where's the question of individuality? So even this work, working on me, on me, on me, on me, it's just reinforcing the mind. That's why I have to do a little bit for someone else. That's why we have charity, we have dhanam, we have, doing some service, doing whatever little I can do for somebody else. Because the point of this is to reduce this hold of the individual. I am an individual who's here to profit from this information. So all of this stuff belongs to the mind, and I have to release this slowly. Otherwise, it's going to constantly interfere with the knowledge. The knowledge says all that is here is one, but then that gets superimposed onto the individual. All that is here is one, but who is that one? The individual, the mind, who's saying it. So antahkarana shuddhi, the purification of this mind, becomes 95% of the work in Vedanta.
Coming back to Bobby's part of awareness, individual awareness, it means to say it is hard and difficult to know awareness as an object, but it is not difficult to be the space of awareness knowingly. Is that right?
No, it's hard to know awareness as an object. There's
So
no.
it is difficult. So it is difficult to know awareness as an object, but it is.
No, it's impossible. It's impossible
It
because
is.
it's not supposed to be an object.
Yeah, but it is easy to be the space of awareness knowingly.
It's easy to be the space of, this space of awareness. I know I've heard this before. It's a different kind of school thinking. I can't really answer that because it's very subtle when you say space. What does space of awareness refer to? It can also refer to, there's this process, Power of Now of Eckhart Tolle, which is a lovely book. I recommend it but it's a coping mechanism. And there's a lot of talk in this book about being the space of, being the space of consciousness and witness. In other words, be the ahamkara, by the way. So the way you create this space of awareness, number one, it's not awareness, it's being the space of ahamkara. So in other words, what you do is, remember how the mind has 4 functions: the I sense, the emotions, the buddhi, and the memory. So what you do is you take the ahamkara and you identify with it. And now I watch this, I watch the intellect, I watch the emotions, and I watch my memory. And I am now in the spacious awareness. I am the observer of this. But who am I still? I am the ahamkara. So in this sense, it's a great coping mechanism, but it's not knowledge. So for that reason, I would not use space of awareness, because usually it refers to the ahamkara.
Because I've got only words as a pointers to direct, or I can use it as a synonym, as a being aware, knowingly, being aware of awareness knowingly, or being aware of being aware knowingly.
No, we don't use, because very strictly we use certain words. See, the moment you deviate like this, I know exactly the language you're speaking of. I used to speak like this 20 years ago, and it's Neo-Vedanta, basically. Words are very, very important. So we have to eliminate certain phrases that sound good, but actually they just reinforce this confusion. For example, you cannot define Atma anything except 3 words: Sat and Chit and Ananta. That's it. It is that which is existent. It is that which is awareful, and there's no second, which is what Bobby was saying. There's no second awareness. It's one awareness.
I've got another question in a different context. We know all these stuff, but for a person who's just a beginner or a novice in this whole idea of Satchit and awareness, consciousness, field of, or point, as we can say, space of awareness, but the point comes as a self-realization, because obviously everyone starts their journey with the self-realizations. So how we can, for a beginner or for a child or for anybody, how we can help somebody to ramp up the self-awareness process, or self-realization process. So how can we feed the seed of self-realization in somebody so that they can pick the path of this true self or true nature of their self? So is there any way of objective way of pushing the button of self-realization?
Sure. Sure. So yeah, I mean, you have to see, just to want to be a mumukshu, seeker of the truth, it implies you already are at a point where you recognize that this life, there's more to life than just money and pleasures and dharma. So just to be a mumukshu, you're already very far ahead in the journey. But the thing with the mumukshu is you're very early in that stage. And we all know in those early stages, the amount of notions that we have is astronomical. There's so many notions. Like my notion of moksha is totally going to be different from your notion of moksha. Now, suppose you try to correct them. It's hardly going to stick. So what you usually have to do is you have to talk their language, what they think of moksha, and offer basic practices for them to do. But don't even try to mention that, moksha is knowledge, removing ignorance. In fact, just 5 days ago, I'll give you a story. This happened. And this happens quite often from teacher standpoint because people email you. So look at this. Somebody said to me, can a spiritual master open up your chakras? Okay, this is typical beginner level language. Open up your chakras. Chakras, those yoga chakras, right? Before I answered, I said, define your term of chakra, because my definition could be different from yours. Now, this fella went and researched what chakras mean. And the reply was like this, quote, only a spiritual master who lives in a different plane of existence can open up your chakra by touching you and transferring moksha onto you. Okay, in other words, this is called Shaktipat, transferring. And I said to him, according to the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, this is not true, because you're seeking to know who you are, and thereby you need knowledge. And the problem is ignorance. So this is what I said generally. Before I sent the message, I knew how he was going to reply, because this already happened dozens of times. So you already kind of established your whole track record. And the reply came back in 1 minute. So this means the whole logic was not read. The first part was read, though, and that was, according to the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, this is not true. And what did he say? I said it before and I said it again. The only way for moksha to take place is by a spiritual guru from a different plane of existence to touch your head and transfer moksha onto you. I already knew that's going to happen, but I just sent it anyway, just to see if maybe good luck this time. Nope. So look at this. So suppose this person contacted the spiritual master, and the spiritual master told them what they need to know. Where is this person? In their own head. Their version of spiritual master is louder than the empirical spiritual master. They don't hear you. So, it just shows you how much one can be looking at a person like that, who can take you out of this ocean of samsara, right? Looking, but they don't recognize it, because where are they living? In their own stories, of those 5 stories that are superimposed over the self, as I said. So in that sense, how to help this person? Very, very basic. In fact, now I should have said, yes, chakras are to be opened, and definitely I wish you luck to find a spiritual master who can touch you. Maybe you can go off to, do some more searches on Google or something, right? I could have said something like that. That would have been better. Because now he just dismissed me, right? So there's no connection between us. So that's also a learning experience for me. But yeah.
So Andre, on this point, this is a very good point. It means spirituality and this true self path also gives us the opportunity to open up as well, to like not sticking on any knowledge which I already have it from any source. But let's say, for example, if somebody like you are telling something different to what I already know that. So let's say if there is a confliction or there's a contradiction, then this whole path also tells me that I should be open up to any other thing in the world. Is that right?
Well, in Tattva Bodha, we say what you need is vairagya and viveka. So viveka is the number one thing we need to otherwise, without discrimination, you're just gonna suck it all up. Whatever I tell you, go and do it. Travel here, travel there, hopping one guru to another. So the mumukshu is the beginner, has to have some level of discriminative inquiry going on, but most don't. So this means that that person who doesn't have it, what's going to happen is most likely they will go from one to the other, but they will see through the years, they'll get exhausted. Nothing has worked. And they will come to the spiritual master who has said to them, hey, all of these things that you're trying to do, it's all going to come to knowledge at the end of the day, just removing your ignorance. So you have to let them sometimes just cruise along and exhaust their energy and say, oh, I've tried it all, nothing's working. Yeah. But you can do a little part by dropping your, just tell them something, go and do more meditation, or, go on a retreat or a pilgrimage. All of these things are helping there because they exhaust this seeker. Go on a retreat, go on a pilgrimage. It exhausts the seeker. Now, I'm not saying that all pilgrimages and retreats are seekers, because sometimes even if you know the knowledge, hey, you just want to go, reconnect, go and see the mountains, go and see a different country. So it doesn't mean just because one comes to class, they don't know who they are. This is not true. Sometimes we just like to listen and, help ourselves by deepening this knowledge. Lorena?
I still think that there's no mistakes. I think even though you emailed that back to the person, that one day they might revisit that email and see what you wrote, and then once the other things have exhausted, and then actually start to follow, what is this knowledge that I need to know to understand myself? So I don't think anything's ever a mistake or a waste. I think that was meant to happen, and you gave him something that he can follow up one day if he's mature enough to do so.
And this is a good point, because Lorena's bringing, see, our mind sometimes always thinks, I could have done something different. I should have done it like this. So, right, something we need to catch ourselves that, no, this is, even if I did it like that, I would still say the same thing. Yeah, but I could have done it like that. So sometimes we just have to let it go. I've done my part. You do your little part, let it go. There's a story in, after, right, Krishna went to negotiate one last time, and then I'll do this verse. So Krishna knew that the war was going to come, and it's going to be very destructive. So he went to negotiate with Dhritarashtra, but then Duryodhana took over. And Duryodhana says, no, I'm not going to return them anything. I'm not going to return them, their Indraprastha, their not even 5 villages, not even 5 houses in one village, not even 1 inch of land. They're going to have to fight for it. So this is what Duryodhana said to Krishna when Krishna came to peacefully negotiate. Not only that, but after the answer was affirmative no, Duryodhana was rude to him, right? He was disrespectful and just unpleasant. Now, right after Krishna went out, he was asked, so what did you think? Because Duryodhana was disrespectful to you, and what did you think about this? And Krishna says, I did my part. I just came to do my little part, and I did it. What he chooses to do, what Duryodhana does, that is up to him. From then on, From then on, Krishna does not ruminate on it at all. He just lets it go. This is an intelligent mind. This is the mind that we all want. Once a challenge happens, you're able to do your little part. Once you do it, the moment you do it, you move on and it doesn't stick. And we all relate to this when it sticks and you just want it to leave. You're like, I handle this. Why are you still in my head? So this is, again, something that's not overnight. It needs to, develop. It's a skill that you need to develop. And thereby, this is an intelligent mind of Krishna. So like this, right? I've done my part. And now that I've done it, I can move on. So we give ourselves permission to move on. That's what I want to say. Okay, verse 26. So suppose that I'm still not connecting to this knowledge. And for me, Atma is still anitya jatam, which means it is subject to rebirth. It's subject to coming and going. So my identity is still that, which is understandable. And so you still take yourself as this much, right? The body and mind. So now the question is, right, what do I do about that? Well, if you have not connected to Krishna's words so far about this teaching, and you're still here, right, understandably so, then over here, we have one issue of grief and sadness. This is where grief and sadness always lives. And now I'm not saying grief and sadness is a wise person doesn't have grief or sadness. It's just that I lose sight of the bigger picture. So grief and sadness becomes much more exaggerated. So what the verse says is that your body is designed to change. Your mind is designed to go through birth, right? Assuming it assuming it survives, it's going to go through growth. It's going to go through, right? It's metamorphosis. Voice is going to break. You're going to start to get, changes. Now, when you reach your peak, apakshiyate, you will start to decline. The body will start to get weaker, losing muscle mass, and bones will get weaker. Harder to stay awake, and eventually it's going to end. So these are the natural stages of your body, and everyone is going to go through this. In fact, we are going through this right now. So we're all in one of these stages. So this is a fact of life. It's Ishvara's design, and we can't stop it. We can thereby at least understand this is the setup, and there's just no point of me trying to resist this. Now, when it comes to identifying with my body, anxiety becomes a big thing. Anxiety is about losing something that I don't have right now. Like, so tomorrow I'm going to lose out what I don't have right now. I'm going to lose out my youthfulness tomorrow. And we can relate to this. I'm going to lose out my 40s or 50s or 30s tomorrow. So there's this anxiety about losing out what I have right now. This anxiety of losing out the knowledge or losing out the connections or your friends. This is how it is. But this is going to happen anyway. So the verse says then, the only way to work with this is to change your relationship to that loss. Because that loss is actually what we call law of destruction, right? It's just one of the laws in this universe. It's there to sweep things away, to bring space for the new. Now, the thing is, we have usually a negative relationship towards law of destruction, the sense of loss. I'm going to lose things out that I cherish right now. But if you really look at your life, you will see that this sense of loss has actually done so much good for you. It has taken away pain from your life. It has removed the old brain to give you a new, smarter brain. It has removed people from the 1800s to give space to you and I right now. It has removed the day to give us night so we can sleep. It removes the night to give us day. It gives us honeymoon, and then it removes the honeymoon so that it can give us connection. And then it removes the connection to give us depth. And then it gives us, right, freedom to It gives us new opportunities by removing old chapters of our life. It controls the population. It removes your sickness. It removes your ignorance, removes false ideas. It removes that small wanter, that child, the mommy, the daddy girl, the mommy, daddy's boy. It removed that to give us this independent, mature, grown-up, rational human being who is able to sit and listen. So in that sense, we change our relationship from this is to be avoided, this is to be, feared of, to something that this is to be embraced. Because if I could not speak, if this law of destruction was not working, because silence would never go away. It would not go away. I would speak right now, but silence just doesn't want to go away. Move! No! So I need the law of destruction to bring it into my life. So this means that the world doesn't work according to my own fancies. It works according to infallible laws. And it's in it for me to recognize these infallible laws, number one, and to cherish them, to use them to your advantage. And how do you use them to your advantage? Well, first of all, we can say, I need this force of destruction. I need things to be removed from my life. There's no way I will be a better person. So first of all, I bring it and I acknowledge it into my life. Second of all, I can have a prayer. I can say, law of destruction, or Shiva. Shiva is the aspect of Ishvara, just a name for it, of Ishvara that sweeps. It's like one big hand that removes this moment to give you this moment. Now it removes this moment to give you this moment. So that's constantly Shiva is going like this, sweeping one moment after another. So I can say, law of destruction, oh law of destruction, oh Shiva, I'm trying to get rid of this fear, of this judgment towards people, of this blockages in my mind, of unable to connect to the words. I'm trying to get rid of this. I want to know you. I want to know Ishvara. Help me, because I'm powerless. I acknowledge my helplessness. Help me to remove this so that I can live happy. I can recognize your truth and my truth are one. So this means that if we're holding this bitterness from someone who's, for example, hurt you, then you can say something like, look, this is definitely unpleasant. It's not, I can acknowledge that. It's unpleasant. If you get hurt by someone or something, someone says something to you, it's not nice. But then I can say, now I'm an adult and I'm no longer that young person who was powerless. I got all of the resources in the world to make a difference to myself. I can, as we said at the beginning, recognize that whoever has hurt me, they didn't know any better. They didn't have the full facts about me or, the situation at hand. No one, not even you, had the full information at that point. So that caused them to make some, statement that's not true, which was hurtful for you at that moment. You can say, it's not true that they don't like me, that suppose it's someone important that dismissed you. There are people who do like you. There are people who you do connect with. There are people who do honor you. Isn't that true? I didn't have the facts. They didn't have the facts. There are people who love me. There is pain, right? They had pain. I had pain in that moment. And they were just operating innocently from that pain. So was it really their fault? Or was it the fault of the society who also was contributing to the pain? Was it the fault of which generation would you like to blame for that person being in pain? The parents? The parents are part of the grandparents. The grandparents? They're within the culture. How many times did the culture get invaded? That also contributed to the grandparents having certain notions which passed on to your parents, which passed on to them. So who can you blame? This goes all the way back for how many creations? It goes all the way millions and millions of years. So the person who hurt you, who has really hurt you? Was it the person 500 years ago who was on earth, who started a war, who made Christians and Muslims hate each other or whatever, right? Someone hate each other, who contributed to the hate of that person who ended up hurting you today in 2020? Or is it ignorance since beginningless time? Like this would change this, our relationship to tomorrow. So all this anxiety and worry and concern, All of that is coming from future thinking, afraid I'm going to lose something. But now I want you to look at it differently. Whatever is it that I'm going to lose, it's actually healthy for me, because your life is a living proof of that. How many things have you and I lost so far to come to this place? How many those false prophets, false teachers, false teachings have you lost to come to this place? Many, right? So this means we change the relationship because you got no choice. It's not your world. Ishvara's world is already here. I have no choice but to embrace it, to align with it, and to use it to my advantage. So this is how we thrive in this world. We look at the laws of destruction, laws of gravity, and then we work with those laws to use a rocket to send 2 satellites in the orbit so that we can use GPS. We use the law of destruction not as a fearful agent, but something to help us to sweep away these undesirable traits, undesirable notions, and just enjoy your life a little bit more.
Andre, it's a very interesting point you raised just now. I'm just curious about how to convey this knowledge in, let's say, working in mental health. When you're dealing with complex trauma or transgenerational trauma,
Right.
how do you convey that this is all good for you to make you grow?
Sure. The first thing that comes to my mind is I always refer to 3 basic modalities. So in your workplace, and I highly recommend this, you got ACT, CBT, and these 2 I will highly recommend to incorporate into. CBT means cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's really the essence of all psychology. And I recommend this for everyone because it shows you how to think differently about fear, about trauma, about fear, about phobias, about how to turn around that hate, how to turn around those things that provoke me. So it's got a lot of interesting methods of looking at the world, looking at your thoughts. CBT, Kardec. Otherwise, yes, it's very difficult, but the idea is take one strategy and just try it for one day and see the kind of responses that you get. And then you can have some feedback and then try a different strategy tomorrow, like this. One strategy at a time. In fact, it's a great thing, right? At a workplace, you got so much opportunities to bring this knowledge, to exercise this knowledge, and to make it work for you. So see, in other words, we're taking workplace now into something positive. We're taking law of destructions into something positive. As long as I look at it, in a way, oh, it's not good there, and all these people are giving me a hard time. This you can shift it around like that just through an attitude change. Verse 26. Athachainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho naivam shochitum arhasi.
And if you take this Atman to have constant birth and death, even then, Arjuna, the mighty armed, you ought not to grieve for the Atman in this manner.
So therefore, you are not to grieve in this manner because this law of destruction you are now embracing rather than being something fearful of. So that's what the verse wants to say. So verse 27, it says that Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu. So that which is born, therefore, has to go. And dhruvam janma mritasya, and that which is gone will come again. And therefore, this shows us the cycle of coming and going, of whatever it is, your experiences in life, and knowledge is also going to go away, except the only knowledge that doesn't go away is the knowledge of the self. Every other knowledge will go away. And it also explains reincarnation. So what is reincarnation? Just briefly, I said that, everything that comes, it leaves a seed, it leaves a trace of itself. And that grows into like a seed, right? The seed leaves a trace, gives itself up, and it grows into a tree. And when the tree produces another seed, then what's inside that seed? The essence of the tree. But what else? All of the teachings that tree has experienced throughout its life. So if that tree was subject to high winds that wasn't there in the previous generation, that tree in a very small way, had to learn how to hold itself deeper, suppose. It had to learn how to adapt. So all of those new teachings that that tree produces will be inside that seed. So the next seed will again produce a tree, but that tree will be different. It will have new kinds of evolution and ways of coping with the dry environment, with the harsh sun, with the high wind that the previous tree didn't have. So every offspring has new intelligence that the previous offspring didn't have. And tasmat, therefore, apariharye, natvam shochitum arhasi. Therefore, don't grieve because you cannot change the past. In fact, a lot of time we spend, how much time grieving about the past? Those good old times. Oh, when I was younger, I used to be like this. How much time goes into this? It just creates, for the most part, pessimism, negativity, depression, sadness, and you totally miss out the person who so rightly deserves to be enjoying themselves right now. So this means that, right, we can say again, this has happened. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but right now I give myself permission to move on in life. In fact, you need to give yourself permission. Life is not going to give you permission. Life is not going to knock on the door, knock, knock. Yeah, you have permission to move on in life. You have to assertively say, hey, here I am with this mind. I give myself permission to move on and not look back. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha, tasmad apariharyerte, natvam shochittum arhasi.
For that which is born, death is certain, and for that which is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, you ought not to grieve over that which cannot be altered.
Okay, so this is very straightforward. We embrace the present, because in the present all your power is, and therefore we give ourselves permission to move on with life. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.